Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. One of the worst kept secrets in all of boxing, it is now out of the box with the announcement WBC champion Deontay Wilder will be taking on Cuban southpaw Luis Ortiz on March 3rd in Brooklyn, New York. So Wilder himself, he had basically let the cat out of the bag for this one on social media a couple of weeks ago. Which I guess in part it does explain the very light press release issued on Premier Boxing Champions website, which doesn't feature a comment from either boxer, their promoters, or management representatives. So that in itself is a bit strange and frankly disappointing, especially given how big a deal this clash is in the context of heavyweight boxing, the division itself, and the future prospects of both men. It also doesn't exactly give a willing boxing media and the mainstream media, more importantly, much to run with when they do their stories. If you're providing the content, and in this case the press release, you want to lay it all out on a platter for the media. Make it easy for them. In this day and age of journalism, with media turning stories over quickly because of reduced staffing levels, having it all there for the reporter, it helps ensure it gets picked up and on websites quickly. So a general rule of thumb in journalism is any good story should have three voices, which helps cover an issue and get both sides across. It provides the balance. So if you make it harder for newsrooms by not providing the quotes for this sort of announcement, you probably hurt the coverage you otherwise could have got, or it ends up just getting a few lines as opposed to a whole write-up. So couple that also with the fact that the general details had leaked out a few weeks ago. It takes away some of the impact this announcement should have otherwise had. It all becomes a bit ho-hum. Oh yeah, we already knew that, etc., etc. And that really is a shame, because outside of a unification bout, Wilder vs Ortiz, it's one of the biggest fights that can be made in the heavyweight division, one of the bigger fights in boxing. If they had have kept the details relatively tight, this announcement, it could have and should have made a much bigger splash. It should have got us all going, getting us reading and talking about it. So yeah, I think they ballsed this one up on the PR front. But if we have a look at the threadbare press release, so I'll go to a couple of lines here. Wilder-Ortiz is a long-awaited matchup of undefeated consensus top 5 fighters facing off in the resurgent heavyweight division and marks Wilder's third appearance at Barclays Center. So I'll summarize the next waffly bit. Broadcast details, they'll be announced soon and tickets will be on sale next week. And the only one quote in the press release is from a guy called Brett Yormack of Brooklyn Sports Entertainment, which I take it runs Barclays. So he says, "We are thrilled to welcome the heavyweight champ back to Barclays Center for his second consecutive fight after a big first round knockout of Berman Stavern in our ring last November." So there is a little bit more puffery at the end, but nothing to write home about, nothing worth getting into. So the one thing I will pick up from that is I agree these guys are consensus top 5 heavyweights, which, as I alluded to earlier, it makes this undercooked announcement all the more bizarre. I mean, even Wilder and Ortiz have been somewhat muted on social media, so sharing a generic PBC news clip which has less information than the press release. But in Wilder's caption he says, "I don't want no excuses this time." While Ortiz, and on his social media, he says, "Somebody's losing their O. The best will meet the best. It's going down March 3. Let's see who the best is when the best meet the best." So just going back to the point about all this being undercooked, if you think forward a bit, and think about it like this. Deontay Wilder, he's looking to run through Luis Ortiz and take on the winner of Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, that unification bout, which is set to be announced shortly. At the moment, he's let it be known that he wants a 50-50 split for taking on Anthony Joshua, which is perhaps a little unrealistic, but that's what he's saying. So if you think about this, beating Ortiz and beating him well, it helps his case on the negotiation front. But other factors will also strengthen his position as well. namely how many tickets he sells at Barclays, and the general hype and media attention that's able to be generated from the clash. The better Wilder, and Ortiz for that matter if he were to win, the better they can do, it helps drive up their cut in a unification negotiation. You can take away things like he can't sell tickets, especially if they sold lots of tickets or sold it out. You can take away no one knows who he is, especially if it gets a lot of media attention. That just goes away. So they really need to do a good job for this March 3rd event. Future earnings are definitely on the line. They're at stake here. So I would have thought that they would have been trying to make this thing bigger than Ben-Hur, because it's in everybody's interest. They can line everybody's pockets who's involved, and the business of boxing matters. So I really hope they do it justice. So this opening announcement, it really is undercooked for me. In my opening salvo of the year, I did actually cover the Wilder-Ortiz clash in the second half of that video. So instead of repeating myself just a week later, card is on screen now if you want to hear my thoughts on it. So that's in the second half of the video. But suffice to say, I do like this matchup. Both guys, they need it for various reasons. So career-wise, legacy-wise, money-wise, there's lots of things on the line here. What do you make of it? And who do you favour heading into it? Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.